What's up, fellow go-givers? JuJuan Buford, managing partner JSB Business Solutions Group, and walking the community today. Actually, not quite walking the community. I should have recorded us when we were walking the community Thursday, but walking through the community, right? And what I want to talk about today is a conversation I had with a entrepreneur that wants to go full-time. And what I want to talk about today is the value of taking both the dollar and 50 cents, right? The question I asked the entrepreneurs, look, if there's $1.50 on the table and you can pick up the $1.50 or $1.50, which one do you do, right? And the entrepreneur responded, well, I pick up the dollar. And I said, no. I know it's kind of a trick question, but really what you want to do is you want to pick up the $1.50. They're like, do tell. I said, look, you got a job where you're basically earning as you learn, right? You're there. And you need to understand that somebody started that business, whether it was 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. And you're there utilizing the phones, you're there utilizing the infrastructure, you're there utilizing all the tools that they make available to you at your disposal, and you're not paying for any of it, right? And because of that, you're kind of like, quote unquote, a cog, right? You're utilizing these resources to earn that company money, but you know what you're also earning? You know what you're also accumulating? You're accumulating skill stack. You're accumulating talent stack. You're accumulating experience stack. Basically, they're teaching you everything you need to know. So when you make the transition from being a W-2 to a 1099, you're going to understand how to utilize systems. You're going to understand how to interact and talk with people. You're going to understand how to communicate a value prop. You're going to learn all these different things. You have to worry about the expenses, the operational expenses associated with getting a endeavor like this off the ground. This is invaluable, right? I can tell you honestly, one of the biggest mistakes I made, but also one of the biggest blessings that happened in my life is after graduating University of Michigan, I ended up working in the banking system. Now, look, everyone knows my story. I was there for like 2 seconds because they made an error in judgment. As a licensed bank employee, when they started making sure that we had to be licensed, I got a chance to see the other side of money. So I brought in over $1 million of revenues in a 3-month period of time, and they gave me a $50 Marshall's gift card. And they expected me to be happy and to jump up and down for joy about it. But no, I had seen the other side of money. I knew what other investment advisors were really earning when they brought in that kind of revenue. So, you know, being a young man, and I wouldn't recommend anyone do what I did, right? I was a single parent young man. I quit that job. Really no savings to speak of. But I'm gonna tell you what I did have. And I'm so glad that I took that banking job. And part of me says to myself, you know what? Maybe I should have kept that banking job for a little bit longer. But what I did learn was work ethic. Man, I was working my a-hole off, okay? I was working. I was coming in early, I was leaving late, because in order for me to keep my job before I brought in $1 million, the bank was getting ready to go under. We all knew it was getting ready to get closed, so we were fighting for our lives, right, to keep our jobs. So I learned incredible work ethic. Being in the banking industry, I learned how to talk to people about money. Being in the banking industry, I learned how to communicate on the value prop. Being in the banking industry, I learned about systems and things that you need to have in place to run smoothly, right? So I learned about the role of technology. I learned about the role of telecommunications. I also learned leadership. While I was there, I climbed the ladder. And though I was the bank officer there, I quickly was occupying the position of an assistant manager, because assistant manager was MIA, missing in action at the time. So I ended up taking on their role. And then because the manager was doing all these other things to keep the branch afloat, and the assistant manager wasn't there, she put all this stuff on my table. Now, I wasn't being paid for this stuff, but I was like, I'm gonna take on this responsibility anyway. It's just the way I'm cut. It's like, I want to keep my job. I want to keep this, branch afloat while I'm here. You do what you got to do. Sometimes you do what's required of you. Sometimes you do things that you're not getting paid for. So later on, you get paid for things you no longer have to do. And that's what I ended up doing. And it was such a huge blessing, because when I started to slowly tiptoe into entrepreneurship and start my journey as an investment advisor, I already had the work ethic. I already knew how to talk to people. I already knew I had to come in early. I already knew I had to arrive at appointments 10, 15 minutes early. I knew all these things. It was ingrained in me. It was part of my DNA, right? And it helped me considerably. So I earned as I learned while I was on that job. And then when I became an investment advisor, I'm working in an environment where I'm the only pepper. I'm not getting much support. I'm not getting much help. I was frustrated. I was angry. I left. But before I left, of course, once again, I learned some things, right? I watched how to prospect. I watched business development, sales management. And because I was looking at other investment advisors who were actually slowly but surely making their way into agency owners and brokers, I watched them document their process and teach their process. So I started documenting my process in journals. I was documenting conversations I was having, qualifying appointments. I was documenting appointments that I would refer to kind of like as go from qualifying, not necessarily to closing, but presenting, right? The value prop. I was documenting my closing appointments, the verbiage I was utilizing, the sales tactics and strategies I had picked up. And I was absorbing everything around me. So while they may not have been inclined to teach me like they should have, I still could watch them via observation. And I remember there was an attorney that I have a lot of respect and regard for. And I told him I was getting ready to quit. He said, no, man, you need to stay there longer. You need to absorb more. But I was like, man, the culture is like grating on me. Like, I can't stand the fact that I'm only pepper in there. I can't stand the fact that it was obvious to me that people were praying for my downfall, expecting me to quit any day now. I got tired of that. I wanted to be planting seeds in fertile soil. I wanted to be in an environment where people were actually supporting me. I wanted to be in an environment where people actually want to see me win. I want to be in an environment where not only were expectations communicated, but I was equipped with the tools, information, and resources to really grow into my own and be successful. I didn't think I was going to have that in that environment, but I'll tell you what I did learn. I acquired a lot of grit in that environment, right? I acquired the attitude that I should not expect for other people to see me win. I acquired the attitude that many of the clients that came to the office who may not came from my background or had my ethnic or cultural or socioeconomic experience, I'd never had the attitude of people are going to wake up and patronize me just because. I knew I had to earn every dollar. I knew I had to earn every minute. I knew I had to be picture perfect. I had to show up every single day, even when it was a shit show, even when things weren't going my way, even when things weren't fair, right? That's one of the lessons I learned. Entrepreneurship, it's not about fairness, okay? It's not about fair. You don't win with an attitude of, I just want things to be fair. No, life is not fair. There's just consequences. You do A, B, C, and D. These are A, B, C, D, and consequences. If you don't show up a certain way, this is a consequence. If you show up this way, it's a consequence. If you're prepared, there's a consequence. If you're not prepared, there's a consequence. Having that attitude instilled in me served me very well as an entrepreneur. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out here who just think that somehow, just because they exist or because of their background, that somehow money's supposed to fall from the sky like manna, and people are supposed to do them a favor and show up in front of them and allow them to communicate their value prop. I never have exhibited that attitude, never will, right? And so these are the things that I wanted to communicate to the entrepreneur I was talking to. You pick both the $1.50 up, right? What you do is you continue to work that job for as long as you can. You continue to build your business on the side. And then you build your business to the point where you are generating well over 150 to 175% of the income you're earning at the W-2, because when you become an entrepreneur, there are going to be all these expenses. You're not going to have that infrastructure anymore. You have to pay for marketing. You have to pay for tools. You're going to have to pay for a lot of different things. You're also going to pay for the lack of skills that you haven't learned. You're going to pay for the lack of experience that you don't have. You're going to pay for the lack of connections that you don't have in place, right? Because typically if you're a W-2, you're not having a prospect code, the business is walking in through the door, where the price you're going to have to pay is to learn how to go out and acquire the business and attract the business, right? These are things that you can learn being a W-2. And this is why you should not necessarily quit your job. Continue to work your job, continue to earn while you learn, develop the skill set, develop the experience set, develop the talent set, create the connections, right? If it's an environment that's not savory, it's an environment that's not supportive, it's an environment where the people don't want to see you win, good. Because it will teach you how not to have expectations of anyone around you. It will teach you ultimate responsibility. That regardless of whether or not you're receiving the training, it's your responsibility to get the training. If you're not receiving the support, it's your responsibility to seek support. If there are things that you don't know, it's your responsibility to find out things you don't know. These are all entrepreneurial mindsets that you have to have, right? And so that's my advice. That's the guidance. That's what I wanted to share today.